What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Sovah Says Show. We've got a special Scouting After Hours episode here for you tonight. Tonight, we are looking at the belle of the ball, basically, the freak that showed up to Indy and blew the doors off the 40, the vertical jump, just maybe put together the most impressive scouting combine workout of all time, and that was Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles. His brother, who is a also on the Ohio State team, plays defense, plays safety, also with a tremendous 40 time himself. But Sonny Styles is a guy that, as this draft process continues all the way to April, we are looking at a guy that you know, maybe throughout the season, based on, probably positional value, was like, could Sonny Styles be a first round pick? Well, after the season he just had, after the workout that he just put on display in Indianapolis, I think a lot of people are talking about whether not only is he a top 10 pick, is he a top 5 pick? Could he even be the first defensive player taken? Now, this is a loaded blue chip defensive group. You've got, pick your poison of linebackers, his teammate Arvell Reese, a guy who can play off ball, a guy who can play on the edge with his hand in the dirt or standing up rushing. Is going to have a lot of versatility that people like. Sonny Styles, though, a converted safety, a guy that started at Ohio State as a safety. And by the time his senior year was done, he was probably one of the most talented and gifted linebackers we'd seen come out of there in a very long time. Other guys that are in this draft, the edge class looks really strong. David Bailey from Texas Tech. You've got Reuben Bain Jr. And I don't care what anyone says about the arm size. You throw on the tape, you throw on an interview of this guy, and he is oozing confidence and production. Um, Defensive tackle, there are even some guys that are in discussion. Whether Peter Woods is a guy that has top 10 potential, depending on what the Bengals are thinking and how the first round plays out there. So there is just a lot of. I mean, the other Ohio State guy may have just ignored the best player in the entire draft on the defensive side of the ball, and that's Caleb Downs, a guy that you heard some stuff come out of Indy about a potential knee issue, and a degenerative knee issue at that. But like I've said on this show at times, and like I said on the internet on X, it's lying season right now. I don't believe anything anyone has to say. If I'm any team doing the correct and the proper due diligence on Caleb Downs as a prospect, you're bringing him in, you're letting your own medical staff look at him, you're probably even getting a second opinion just in case, and you're letting that guide what you or how you ultimately rank and look at a prospect like that. But speaking of looking at prospects, we have to just look at the guy we've been talking about, Sonny Styles. You know, we're going to take a look at sort of how we build a database. We want to see what sort of statistical profile he has, may look up to see, I believe Sonny Styles' RAS score is the highest of all time, and it doesn't necessarily mean of any player that ever lived. I think those scores only go back about, you know, 20 close to 25 years. Um, but he is number one on with the perfect RAS score. So oozing athleticism at that position, and getting the pro comp from myself, from many other people on social media, of Fred Warner. And if you don't live under a rock and you've watched NFL football, you know that there isn't a better linebacker um, in all of football than Fred Warner. There isn't a better linebacker, in the last 10 years. Obviously, we've got some studs that are going to the Hall of Fame. Luke Kuechly recently, Ray Lewis, Brian Urlacher, is Willis. He to, when it's all said and done, be standing next to those guys, or have a bus next to those guys in Canton. All right, so let's talk about Sonny Styles. The first thing we want to look at is the statistical profile. Now, it's a little different. It's a little I don't want to say jarring, but you have to kind of, take it with um a little bit of a little grain of salt here. So we talked about how he converted positions. He wasn't a linebacker from day one for them. He was started as a safety. So just right out the gate, you look at, um, you know, age wise, you're looking at a guy that turns 22 in the season, be drafted at at 21 years old, will turn 22. So you're getting a player who, a young player, a guy that easily you could see having two contracts that you would not hesitate, based on his age. Because by the time that with that 50-year option comes around, you're looking at a guy who's, just starting his late 20s. And I think you'd be more than happy if he's productive and wouldn't even think about age and as a factor at that point. So you're looking at a two contract guy if you play your cards right and he's at the professional level, the player that you're thinking he is. All right, at the combine, he measured in at 6'5". Now, you're talking about an off-ball guy with that type of height, that type of length at 244 pounds, and then running the way he did and jumping the way he did. You this guy is, if you grew him in a lab, um, this is how you would do it. This is exactly how you would do it. So we want to take a look at his statistical profile here. So the first thing, we want to look at. So his freshman and sophomore year, he did play safety. So 23 games in 2 years. The first year, probably didn't get too many starts. A modest 9 tackles with 1 tackle for loss. No plays anywhere else. So he was active as a freshman. He was getting in games, probably the majority on special teams with an occasional snap here and there. But we don't really need to go back that far. So let's start with the most productive. Let's start with his most recent and his most productive year. So in 2025, he had 82 tackles. How many of those were for a loss? 6.5 tackles for a loss. So a guy that does get in the backfield, not a ton, but a guy still that gets back there, and had a sack. Did he have an interception? Yes, he did. He had an interception, and he forced fumbles. No fumble recoveries, but he did have 3 pass breakups. And let's say that was in 14 games. We're going to drop that down a line. Or not. All right. So in 2024, now this was his first year at linebacker in 2024. You're looking at a guy that, jumped right in at the position and hit the ground running, because this statistically is his best year. 100 tackle season for Sonny Styles. This is the national championship year. So this is the year that, everything was clicking. 10 and a half of those. So living in the backfield. So good for him in that first year. Sack wise, 6 sacks. By far the most of any year of his career. I mean, double the other 3 years combined. So whether it was any sort of scheme difference, whatever. 8 pass breakups. No interceptions. So in 4 years, despite playing safety, 2 of those, no interceptions in his career. at Ohio State. And let's just say that was in 16 games. So, a couple more games to get a few more opportunities, but nothing major. Still super productive. So 2023 as a safety, um, 13 games here. You're looking at 53 tackles from the safety position. And just think when you're looking at his height, just to imagine having that guy playing safety with that height and that being able to move like that. Now, once you put on 240 to 240, that type of weight, you weren't looking at 2 sacks from the safety position. So they already kind of saw, the potential there. Um, and then one PBU in 13 games. So really, really solid number. So from a statistical standpoint, you know, I mean, I'm looking at a guy that definitely oozes production, is a guy that is getting into backfields. I mean, we saw it his first year, 100 tackles, 10 and a half for loss, 6 sacks. So certainly were you probably using him differently that year, maybe Arvell Reese, by him having a better year this past year. You didn't have to send Sonny as much, but a really good productive profile. He's going to be towards the top. Now, when we're looking at any sort of awards and All Americans, he was first team All American and first team All Big Ten this year. So, first team All American plus Big Ten in 2025. Those are the types of things like when you're looking at, guys that played in big conferences that stood out amongst other really talented players. It's another thing to just factor in that, like this kid was all about it. Awards, did not win any postseason awards. That's okay. Let's actually see if he was a captain while at Ohio State. And he was a captain in 2025, named captain. So, as some teams value things like that more. When you look at a team like the Cincinnati Bengals, they really value that. That's part of the profile of players they like to look for. Did not have any performance at the Senior Bowl or East West Shrine. Was really sort of um, too big for that. When we talked about, we did see him at the combine. All right, let's see. The 40, we'll get to watch the 40 here in a little bit, but let's get that time. So he ran a 4.46 official, weighing at 244. So he was moving. Vertical was the other standout, and we'll actually get to see that here in a second as well. But his vertical leap, 43 and a half, the highest ever for a linebacker, 240 pounds or more. So 43.5. Highest ever. All right, so the other times we can go fill out and figure out. And as we get closer and closer, more of these will get figured out, filed in, and we'll be able to then start to rank these, create percentages based off of what percentile that they rank in. We already talked about that RAS score being the highest of all time. I mean, right there, that's all you really need when we start to talk about athleticism and how you want to look at a player like Sonny Styles. All right, so let's do one of the more fun parts. We are going to go to one of these YouTube highlight reels that you know, you're not always getting coach's angle. Most of the time, you're getting broadcast angle, but it's just fun to kind of see the best plays. Now, um, when you're breaking down college tape, you usually want to take the two best and the two quote unquote worst and sort of, get a good feel for, you know, the truth, where the actual truth lies, somewhere in between. But, with a highlight tape, you're seeing some of the biggest and best moments. So it can kind of give you an idea of, the capabilities, the potential. So let's take a look at one of these highlight tapes, and we'll be on this for a few minutes. Um, all right, here we go. So we'll just kind of watch this.
Man, he's going to have to let this one fly.
As you saw him at the top of your screen, singled out. Now watch him drop into coverage here. He's going to take this zone, so flat, and look, attack, make make a good wrap up tackle here. One of the big things is in the open field. Not only does he not get juked, but once he gets his hands on you, does he clamp? Fought off the block there. Is able to make a tackle. Sideline to sideline there for a loss. Good recognition here. Steps up, fills the lane, short gain, and again, just making a really nice tackle. Let's see that one more time. He's going to be lined up here in the middle. Boom. Once he sees it, reads, reacts, and is like a freight train coming at the opposing ball carrier. Again, here in the middle. Boom. Stuff. Once, you know, that's a big thing, especially at linebacker. When guys are running at him full speed, how much distance does he give? Is it like instant impact and they go down there? Does he win and bring the momentum? Or when guys hit him, okay, so here's a loose ball here. Let's see how much he had to do with. There it is. Just a nice whoop, comes up, sticks his hand on the ball, punches it out, and that's a turnover. Definitely seeing him on the inside a lot of these plays. But, um, here he is on the edge, dropping back in coverage now. Good job just reading, getting through all the garbage, and coming up and making a nice tackle for a short gain. Here's another one, downfield a little bit, but um, wasn't necessarily, at the line of scrimmage there. So here he is in the interior, in the middle. And look, this is where those Fred Warner comparisons are going to come from. Playing in the middle, being able to follow, not over pursue, down the line of scrimmage, and then making the tackle, oftentimes in the backfield, as we've seen right here. I mean, I think we're getting every single one of these tackle for losses on his season right here in this video. Again, pretty deep at the goal line. Oh, this is a really, you see this. This is on every highlight reel. This play here. Watch watch the pursuit on this. This is, his teammate doesn't make the play. Boom, he comes up to the line, but then when he realizes he's got to just turn on the gas and get him before he gets to the goal line, he does just that, makes a stop, holds him, sends the Illinois offense to 4th and goal. I mean, look at that. What do you mean we didn't get in? I mean, I gotta see it again. I mean, what a crazy play. Here we go. So watch. He's in the middle of the end zone. He comes up to the line. The quarterback, what a great play. 2 spin moves to get free, but you're not gonna get out of Sonny Styles' grasp once he's in chase mode. Really, really high end play. That that guy will never get old. That guy's gonna be a meme for life. See right here, nice spin to get off the tackle, and it buys Sonny just enough time to use that elite speed and look at the strength to really stop all his momentum dead in its tracks so that he didn't pick up that touchdown. Out in coverage here. Boom. Right place, right time. Now, there's obviously some luck involved in some of these, but there are some Hall of Famers that made a living off just being in the right place at the right time. Now, a lot of that comes with discipline, a lot of that comes with film study. It's not all luck. There's a reason he's there at the right place at the right time. Shows some good hands, some good reaction skills. He is out here on the boundary, and he's just gonna he's he ran into it. He ran into a tackle there. But again, good feet, got his eyes in the backfield, and able to track the ball carrier, and maybe intimidated him into a tackle. So you're just seeing a lot of those natural safety instincts. Here's a good play here. Let's watch this PBU right here. Watch him drift into the corner here, into the flat, boom, and it's, 10 yards deep, chasing down quarterbacks, preventing first downs, big third down stop. So he bluffed the blitz here, like he was in the B gap waiting, boom. And that's a big thing. Saw this a lot of players at Ohio State. Caleb Downs, another guy. Big hitters, man. When they put their foot in the ground and they come full speed for you, those are guys. Those guys are going to, separate the player, the receiver from the ball. Just good instincts here, good athleticism. You definitely see why he was a safety, and he put on the necessary weight to become a linebacker, and now he has a safety in a linebacker's body. That is probably the best way to describe him. Another guy who was a safety in a linebacker's body who had the same evolution, in college, Brian Urlacher at New Mexico State, started as a safety, finished as a middle linebacker, went to the NFL, had a ton of interceptions, made a ton of tackles in the backfield. A lot of similarities. And we've been talking about Fred Warner. Maybe we see Fred Warner the most because that's the most recent player, in our memories. But if you're really thinking about it, and Urlacher was a tall guy too. He is Brian Urlacher. He is another Brian Urlacher. He is a safety turn linebacker, and he certainly plays like it. This game against Miami, man, there were so many big hits from this Ohio State defense. Look at that play, shooting that gap right there. Jesus. You're standing up here. Boom. Guard can't even pull. Looked like might have been Markel Bell right there, but here he is out here on the slot, but it's a bluff. He's blitzing, and he's still able to, despite Carson Beck, who's fairly athletic, stepping up in the pocket, still able to, bend enough to get the corner and take him down. So, really talented guy. I mean, you could watch highlights all day of this guy, and he's going to show you so many different things. He's got so many tools in his bag, and I'm really starting to see why the hype would be there. I mean, if you asked, a team, would you draft if you knew you were getting Brian Urlacher, would you draft him in the top 5? And I think, almost every GM in football would say, yeah, I would. So there's going to be some conversations. Robert Sala is a guy that coached Fred Warner. The Titans are picking number 4. What happens there? The Jets at number 2, they need defensive playmakers. Is he a guy that is his number gets called as high as 2? That would be crazy. Um, even the Cardinals are still looking for an identity and defensive playmakers. They're at 3. So there is a lot of action happening. And I can't imagine, a scenario where he slips past number 10. I don't know why the Bengals, if he's on the board, would let him do that. unless, Reuben Bain Jr.'s there, or some other freak that they've really had their eyes on, whether it's, Caleb Downs or David Bailey, somebody like that happens um to stay, then that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna stick and pick. All right, let's we talked about some of that those moments from the combine. Um, let's look at that vertical. Oh, that was the wrong window. Let's look at this one. Here we go. So then remember, this was a record for linebackers, a combine record for linebackers over 240 pounds. And I think this goes into a slow-mo right here, courtesy of Stacey Dales, I believe. Great job by Stacey in Indianapolis all week. I mean, look at that. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's a higher vertical than Steve Francis winning the slam dunk competition. I mean, that's nutty. I mean, that dude's massive. I mean, so think about that guy when we saw one of those plays when we were watching the highlight where, he's in one of those hook zones or he's out on the sideline, defending the out, and he's jumping up and batting balls away. I mean, there's just nowhere to get the ball around him. He can jump through the ceiling, and look at the length on him, the speed. I mean, this is a scary prospect, and it's not like he just wasn't a demon in Indy that you throw on the tape and you consistently see these types of plays. So and then we talked about the blazing speed, and he took the 40 and basically, set the world. I mean, his brother had a great time too. I think his brother ran in the 4.3s. So I don't know what they were feeding them, but whatever it is, 4.28. Oh, that's the brother. Uh, so we talked about the brother. We got the brother. Let's see. Sonny. Here he is. Here's some other linebackers. Just an all around insane performance from Sonny Styles and his brother. Um, Wanted to look at a clip that Jordan Reed posted. We've talked about just how productive, obviously, and all these athletic things we're seeing that, are showing off his speed, his rare quickness, his leaping ability. But, you know, what sort of strength, can he take on a pulling guard and shed him? Does he get his nose dirty? Does he get in and really take on offensive linemen to make plays? I want to show you this clip that Jordan Reed posted that shows you exactly that. And I think that's really going to be um one of the more impressive things, because he does all the athletic and all the agility and all the speed things perfect, just perfect. But does he have that dog in him, so to speak, where you are confident that he can do the dirty work and he can get his nose in there with the pulling offensive lineman. So here he is right here, number 0. Watch this play as he takes on the guard and still makes the play on the running back. Thank you, Jordan, for that circle. Boom. Right in his chest. Rocks the offensive lineman. And then it forces the running back. And then the teammates rally and make the stop. I mean, wow. Watch this play. Bam. Right in the offensive guard's chest. No, is that a pulling tackle? Jeez. Yeah, that's. Yep. Here comes the tackle around the. Nope. You just got a helmet and shoulder pads right in his midsection, rocked him back into the running back to stagger the running back so that the homies could come rally at the ball and bring down the ball carrier for no gain. What? I mean, this is, you know, this is what you need from your middle linebacker. And these are the types of plays. He's not going to be able to make every tackle, but if he can detonate an offensive lineman so that the run play is disrupted and his teammates come and clean it up, then that's all you can ask for. So I think for Sonny Styles, for me, definitely a first round pick. And I'm going to say definitely a top 10 pick. And I'm not going to be mad if he goes in the top 5. You see all the things you need on tape. And, the top 5 typically gets, talked about with, positional value is such a crazy thing there. But if a guy is an elite blue chip prospect, I don't care what position he plays. I don't care if he's a safety. You're telling me you don't draft Sean Taylor with the 3rd overall pick if Sean Taylor's there, or you don't draft Ed Reed? These guys changed whole identities of defense. They turned franchises around. If you have a guy, I don't care what his position, if you have a guy who is an absolute elite prospect, I do not care what position he plays. I need to add players like that. I don't care if I already have 2 guys at the same position. If you have an elite prospect, you have to take a guy like that. Well, that's going to do it for us tonight. Everyone who joined us, thank you so much for coming by and hanging out for a bit. If you liked what you saw, if you're enjoying the channel, give us a like. Man, I really appreciate any likes, really appreciate any subscribers. So go ahead and go to the channel, subscribe. You get the alerts when we do these episodes where we're watching these prospects as we get closer and closer to April's draft. Pro days are now upon us. Purdue had their pro day this week already, so wasting no time. So the evaluations don't stop. They're continuing all the way up until commissioner puts the Las Vegas Raiders on the clock. So, we've got plenty to talk about along the way. So you're not going to want to miss any of these episodes. You can always go back to the YouTube channel and find them if you need. But again, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one. Hoo day.